Right, let's bring in our political panel now. Labor's Jenny McAllister, Liberal MP Jason Falinski, both join me now. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Jason, perhaps I could start with you because former Defence Chief Admiral Chris Barry, who led Australia into the war in Afghanistan, said Australia was far too slow to evacuate those who helped Australian troops. Is he right?
No, he's not. And it's really unfortunate that he said that. I mean, Matt, the fact of the matter is that what we are observing today is that those people who refuse to learn from history are doomed to relive it. And I think that what is going on in Afghanistan at the moment is just a tragedy of massive proportions. Particularly, I feel, I'm incredibly worried about what this means for women in Afghanistan. One of the things that we saw, I mean, it brought tears of joy to the then president of Afghanistan when he was able to open their schools for the first time to girls. All of that is quite potentially lost as of today. This was unnecessary. It was not an active combat zone. Let us not forget that Australian troops have been in the Sinai Desert for the last 50 years maintaining peace in that region, and it was quite possible for the Western Allies and the West generally to still stay in Afghanistan to ensure that, amongst many others, young girls had the same opportunity that men have.
Yeah, frightening situation for women and girls in Afghanistan, absolutely. What about the people who helped our forces, you know, men and women, translators, drivers, all of those staff that helped us in the 20 years that we were there? Kevin Rudd's tweeted that it's on the Morrison government's shoulders that they're getting left behind. And he's been pleading with Australia to do more for months. Should the Morrison government be doing more, and does Australia have a responsibility to do more?
Well, when will Kevin Rudd ever make a positive contribution to public debate in Australia? That's the real question here. Australia has opened its arms to those people who assisted us directly in Afghanistan during that time. There are more than 400 translators that, as we speak, are being transported to Australia and to safety with their families. That's on top of many others that we've brought to Australia. Does that mean that we've done enough? Matt, who knows the answer to that question? But we have, not just our side of Parliament, all sides of Parliament are united in making sure as many people who assisted the West in ensuring that a better country was built out of the ashes of Afghanistan and out of the ashes of the Taliban 20 years ago was able to maintain that, and that those people were brought here to Australia to safety. So that is what this government's been committed to, that's what previous governments have been committed to, and that's what we've been executing.
Yeah, let's bring in Jenny McAllister. Jenny, the fate of women and girls in Afghanistan obviously is a concern given what we know about the Taliban. Should women and girls be prioritised in the airlifting out of Afghanistan?
Can I start also just by saying how difficult a day this is for many groups in our community. It will be difficult for Afghan Australians, it will be difficult for veterans who served there to see this unfolding. And it is a very, very worrying time for women and girls in Afghanistan. There is no doubt about that. Admiral Barry, I think, is making the point today that there is an immediate crisis and that planning should have been well underway to get the people who worked with our troops in Afghanistan out in the event of an emergency. And frankly, these calls have been coming from people like Kevin Rudd, but also from the veteran community, from former senior military personnel. It is really disappointing that only now are these plans being put into place. I think all Australians hope that it's not too late, that we will be able to help the people who helped us. In terms of women and girls, there are many people, Australian citizens here who have family, dearly loved relatives in Afghanistan. They've been waiting too long in many cases for their applications for family reunion or for partner visas to be granted. It is really time for the Australian government to get stuck into this and to act with some urgency to bring to Australia people under the humanitarian program who need our protection and who are connected with the Afghan Australian community here.
There's been a lot of commentary already, obviously, today about our role in Afghanistan over the past 20 years. Words like futility and defeat. It seems like there's a very kind of sad feeling about the way we've exited the country. Can I get both of you to reflect perhaps on what the 20-year war is in your eyes? Jenny McAllister, perhaps I could start with you.
The international community sought to do something bigger in Afghanistan. It sought to establish a democratic regime, to establish human rights for women and girls and for minority communities. It's a complex world and not every mission is successful, but it is very, very disappointing to see what's unfolding in the last recent weeks. It'll be very disappointing for the Australian servicemen and women who served there, I'm sure.
And Jason Falinski, perhaps I could get your reflections.
Sure, Matt. Look, the fact of the matter is that human rights are universal. That is that whether you are a woman, whether you are a man, whether you live in Afghanistan or you live in Australia, you are entitled to the same freedoms, the same fairness, the same hope and opportunity, no matter where you are in the globe. Our mission was driven in Afghanistan around the ideals that those Western ideals, the ideals of Western civilization, are universal and that everyone is entitled to access those hopes and those opportunities. The Biden administration's decision to vacate Afghanistan was both unnecessary and has left that country and those people once again under the rule of a vicious and potentially very dangerous group of people. The fact of the matter remains that this was wholly unnecessary, and you can criticise, as Kevin Rudd has been doing as usual in his helpful way, what Australia has done to help people get out of that country. But the fact is there should not have been any need for people to want to leave that country.
And could I perhaps get you to react to one of the comments by your own current serving parliamentarians, Nationals colleague Matt Canavan, tweeting, "Does anyone know whether the Taliban will sign up to net zero?"
Look, I think that Matt's point is, he shouldn't have made that comment today, let's be honest. But his point is indeed a broader one and potentially could have been left till later.
And Jenny McAllister, can I get your response?
I'm actually not going to dignify that comment with a response. It is another exercise in attention seeking, in an increasing trend in the coalition backbench to seek attention by saying outrageous things. It's really disappointing. It's a serious situation. I'd expect Scott Morrison to make some sort of comment about it at some point.
And just before I let you go, obviously you're both in lockdown. How has the lockdown experience?
So the air that gives it away, Matt?
How's the lockdown experience been?
Jenny, do you want to go first?
Well, Matt, I'm presently on my 8th day of hotel isolation in Canberra, waiting for the Parliament to resume. So I have a lot of sympathy for those people who are living alone. It's tough being by yourself and being inside, but I'm keeping well, doing as much yoga as I can and staying on top of my work, and that's keeping me busy.
All right, well, I'm glad that you're both coping, and hopefully you can send those good vibes out to everyone in New South Wales and around the country who's in quarantine. Thank you for your time today, Jason Falinski, Jenny McAllister.
Thanks, Matt.